Welcome to the Nonprofit Exchange Podcast. Stories by leaders for leaders to help you raise the bar on your own excellence, to release the potential inside of you. Now, here's today's podcast. Well, hello, everybody. We're back to the Nonprofit Exchange again and have two guests today that each do their own thing, but they do stuff together that I find is very energizing. So one day I'm looking on LinkedIn and this guy, Elon, sends me a note. Hey, join our workathon. And I'm thinking, I already do enough work. Why do I need to join our workathon? Well, I took him up on his offer and met Blake, and man, it's an energy field. So we're going to talk about getting things done, how to form good habits, how to focus on what's most important. So I have two guests today, and I'll let them, you decide who goes first. Since Elon made the reservation for the day, I'm going to let him go first. So Elon, Marko, and Blake Fly. We've been together a few of your events. Now that it's switched, and I'm the host, and we're going to ask you some questions and ask you to share with people. And I'm sure there are a lot of people that are struggling with how to be more productive. So, Elon, tell us about yourself and why you choose to do this that you do.
Oh my God. Well, I'll give the short version, and this is absolutely wonderful that we can chime in here. We're chiming in from Toronto, Canada, and whereabouts are you, Hugh?
I'm in Virginia, the Blue
Virginia.
Ridge Mountains here.
Amazing. Well, productivity is something that spans across countries and cities and everywhere in the world. It's something that everyone is trying to figure out, especially, in the recording of this podcast right now, we're in the middle of a pandemic. But sans pandemic, maintaining focus is something that is important. So, where did this come from? Actually, there's a long backstory of actually Blake and myself. We met back in university days, and we met in our first day in dorms. And he was walking the hallways, and he had a guitar, and I said, "Hey, you with the guitar, let's jam." And he jumped into the dorm room I was in. We started jamming. We formed a band. From that day forward, we were quote unquote a band, which basically meant we could strum a few notes together and laugh and chuckle. But I bring us back to that time of being in university because there's something deeply profound that we learned in university culture, which is the value of community and the value of having fun while doing the things we were doing. And so, fast forward years later, we had moved away from university. We're living in Toronto. And, we found that all of the fun vibes and all of the lessons of community were kind of gone back back in Toronto. It was like everyone was just doing their work, which is good. But it was missing the fun vibe and the real community feel that we had back in university. So, for the past decade or whatnot, Blake and I have been trying to infuse the community culture and the fun in all the projects we were doing. And of course, productivity is a theme that came up because we had real ambitions and real goals to not only have wonderful businesses but also have like really healthy lives and great relationships with the people that we had in our lives. So all that being said, we started doing a lot of co-working together when we were roommates. I convinced this sucker over here to move in with me years after school to bring back a lot of our lessons that we learned. And sure enough, here we are. But Blake was hosting a thing called Project Finished, and it was an activity to finish a goal in 30 days, like finish a project with a group of other ambitious people. And I did that back in 2018, and it was the most productive month I had all year. And that sort of set the seed for what is like a more deeper story of actually I was battling some serious health issues, and I needed to be able to show up and do great work myself and be productive. And then that's how the whole format and structure was born. But over the past decade, reading every book on habits and productivity I can get my hands on, um, we've come to learn that there's something to maintaining real deep focus, and then infusing it with community and fun that just helps accomplishing goals be way easier. So that's my long-winded story, but so
Let's see what Blake has to say about all this.
Oh my gosh, I could talk about this forever. Not
3
because it's
minutes.
related to
3 minutes.
not because it's related to productivity, but because of just how human this whole experience is. I mean, essentially what excites me and motivates me and what's led to this work is I just think people are better together. And that's not some sit in a circle, kumbaya, hey, let's all group hug when it's not COVID statement. It's I just see what goes on when people do things by themselves. And I see what goes on when people do things by themselves in company with others. And so for me, one of my main life experiences is I lived and worked in university residences. I met Elon back in the day as a student. I lived in those buildings for almost a decade. So I had over 6,000 roommates during my 20s. And now I didn't just live there and hang out. It was my job to run events and lead programs and supervise these student leaders and deal with the tough topics, the highs, the lows, the middles of student life, things as wonderful as, hey, putting on birthday parties, and things as devastating as abuse and sexual assault and like deep, deep despair from some students who were struggling with mental health. And so really, I thought that was a thing that went on for students and residents while they were in university and college. And then over time, I realized when I moved back home and Elon and I met up saying, hey, it's not as fun as it used to be on campus. There was so much going on campus. There was all this humanity at play on campus. I realized, no, those same issues happen every single day. But when you're out of the bubble, out of the container of a building of fellow students, you feel alone, or you can feel alone. So I was always excited with Elon to think, how can we replicate the feeling of everybody's under one roof, doing their own individual thing? For Hugh, maybe it's in the nonprofit world. For Hugh, maybe it's in the like conducting world. For Hugh, maybe it's in the hat selection world. Like, you've got a lot of goals, Hugh. But when we're all under one roof, either physically or metaphorically, I feel like things just get more easily done and people can have more fun. And all we're really doing is helping people feel safe and feel seen with something as simple as when somebody logs into a workspace virtually, we say, morning, Hugh. And then Hugh says, morning, Blake. And then we do our thing. And at the end of the work time, I say, see you tomorrow, Hugh. And then you say, see you tomorrow, Blake. And it's those bookends to our daily relationships in our lives that I feel like when we don't have it, everything suffers. And when we do have it, everything is successful or more likely to be successful.
So my experience with you is the workathons. And so so let me explain a little bit. These crazy dudes, they were both wearing hats. So I got my hat, my Scottish hat, and I do have some McPherson background. So that's my true family plaid. Um, so I showed up with a hat, and it's just quite amazing the energy that happens together. And by the way, center vision is the combination of synergy that you get for the common vision. So it's that energy field that I describe. It's like musical ensemble where people play together and they perform at a higher level because they've got this thing that they do together. The commonality of how you guys jam together. Okay, this works. We can do more together. So the energy and in the community that Center Vision hosts, there's a nonprofit community, and we have energy sessions every week, a couple of times a week, and people can come. What I love about the workathon, people can come, they can leave. It doesn't matter. You can come for an hour. You can come. I stay for 4 hours, and actually get a whole lot more done than if I'm sitting here by myself. So we'll talk about the philosophy behind that and how we can be more productive. But uh, running a nonprofit, either nonprofit leaders or clergy, running a synagogue or a mosque or church, is kind of a lonely place to be because there's a lot of alone time, even though you're leading a community in most cases, even though you're serving others, there's an aloneness to it. So what I find in what you've created is there's the energy field of focus and intentionality about that. So let's set so I guess it was Elon. You invited me. Hey, come to the workathon. It's free. Just show up. Now, I don't get that much on LinkedIn. People want me to buy something. I can, I get this pitch. We can deliver a lot of traffic. I say, well, I already get 15,000 visits a month. How many more visitors do I need? And so they don't even check it out. But you said, hey, come to this space and we'll have a good time and you can be more productive. And I was paying attention that day, so I showed up. So, what was the birth of this? Now, you each have your own enterprise, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But what birthed this thing with the workathon? And you ask people their experience, and it's quite amazing. Everybody has the same story. I get more productive. There's more energy, and than I can do by myself. So, what birthed this? And what's the goal of this? What's the purpose of this?
Well, I can say we're on a mission, right? Our mission with Deep Work Sprints. Deep Work Sprints is our company, and the mission is to help entrepreneurs who are amazing people accomplish goals faster. And we want to do that in a way that's more easy, more fast, more focused, more fun. Those are like our values. Also, we have two more F's, which is financially fruitful and with friends. But essentially, we want people to experience what it's like to work together online effectively. Everything's moved remote. Most things have moved remote right now. Yeah, we're in the middle of this pandemic that a lot of people are working from home, but I've been working from home for years, and so has Blake. And we've learned a lot of really great things along the way. And when COVID hit, I mean, over the past 2 years, we've probably led, I don't know, close to, maybe it's approaching now like 2,000 virtual co-working sprints. And a lot of that started well before this world went online. But when COVID hit, we thought, you know what, we have our daily members that are showing up and we're doing all this virtual co-working together. And I remember when COVID hit, Blake and I were chatting and saying, how can we help other people experience this? And also because we know during COVID, a lot of people, there's financial restrictions for a lot of folks. So we said, why don't we create an online experience that's free, that people can experience? And, at the very least, they'll get some really good focus in, and they'll meet some great people and the networking that's in it, because we have these sprint sessions and then there's the networking part. But yeah, so really the hope of that event was initially, let's give people access to this, because either they'll end up joining the free one, and then, maybe they're leading their own team and they'll get some ideas as to how they can work with their teams in this way. Because we've discovered a lot of subtle nuances of what makes the difference of something that's boring and working together with the team versus something that people actually pay to be a part of. And so yeah, and obviously we hope for the people that it makes sense and they want to join our community as daily members. Wonderful. But Blake and I are, and I think you, Hugh, as well, we're givers. Like we want to give our skills to the world, and for those that this is going to benefit, great. We'd love for everyone to pick up on that.
So, Blake, you guys switch back and forth, and one of you takes the lead, then you switch to the other one. There's a real synergy of how you function together. Now, since I just learned you did 2,000 of the working working things, whatever they are, not just the workathons, but 2,000 different events. I guess you've had time to rehearse your thing. And so we are musicians, in fact, and we do understand the value. Perfect practice makes perfect is how the real quote goes. So I'm quite impressed with. I'm there as an observer, but I'm really a beneficiary of the productivity. So there's a number of things that I'd like to talk about that it addresses, but the space of playing the music and setting the mood and then setting the accountability and then asking about the feeling. Talk about the sequence of how you help people be productive, especially in that workathon. And I guess it's a similar kind of thing you do in your business as well.
Definitely. And I love all the musical references, Hugh, because I mean, that's how Elon and I formed a friendship, was just through guitars. And with you and your expertise, I mean, music drives your life in a massive way, Hugh. So I have a story about that. When we do the workathons, people doing the work who come as attendees, they're there getting work done on their business. And Elon and I are there as well. But while people like you are doing your work, Elon and I are debriefing the thing we just did in the workathon. So at the top of every hour, we lead a 5 to 10 minute experience so that we re-engage the community at the workathon, we energize them, we check in, and we find out, what did you finish this past hour? And then we celebrate that, because we find that especially people in their own business, they don't necessarily remember to celebrate the successes, because why not just get to work? And then we make sure that we queue up the next hour by asking the question, what do you want to finish? And how do you want to feel? And it's that second question, how do you want to feel, that really stops people in their tracks, because some people haven't been asked that question in relation to work that day or that week or that month, or maybe it's the first time in their life they've been asked, hey, Hugh, while you're working today, how do you want to feel during your work experience? And so you get to work for the rest of the hour at the workathon. I phone Elon, or Elon phones me, and then we literally go, okay, how was that? And we're now at a stage where we're refining the seconds. So just at the last workathon, Elon and I made a discovery, which was that if we say to people, what will you finish in the next hour? Type it in the chat. We'll get answers, we'll get ideas. But we refined it recently to fill in this blank. I will finish blank. And so then the chat, instead of seeing all this random like sentences, and some people write one words, it's a little disorganized, and some people are clear, some people are unclear. We see a whole chat blow up with the words, I will finish editing my podcast. I will finish filing my taxes. I will finish taking my dog for a walk because I need to take a break this hour. I will finish closing a deal. I will finish depositing these checks. And it's just all this productivity. But for Elon and I, we once upon a time had like a 3-hour discussion on how to find 10 extra seconds and make it more clear and specific for people at the workathon. So that way for you, Hugh, and anyone attending, you feel like you're just on a train. You're on a train, and there's cool music playing, and there's cool people, and you know where to sit, and you know how to feel, and it's non-intrusive. You're literally just doing your work in a far more beautiful experience than you would have maybe alone at home. We don't want to get in your way. We just want to complement your day.
There was a great performer that spoke about Mozart's music, and he said about Mozart, it's very open and transparent and sounding simplistic. But he said Mozart is very easy for the student, but very difficult for the teacher, because the teacher is able to look for those things you're talking about, the extra nuances. So I'm referencing in that whole workathon, besides focusing on the work I need to get done. And it's really an energy field of productivity. And it does not have to be complicated. So that the myths we have in our minds is we have to create a whole lot of content, a whole lot of structure, make it difficult and not fun. But it can be fun. And I think fun actually prompts creativity. I think Einstein says that in intelligence, having fun is where you're creative. So, what that fosters is a sense of creation. And we are entrepreneurs. Nonprofit leaders and clergy are social entrepreneurs. We're creating value for the people that we serve, just like community organizations that are cause-based charities, just like entrepreneurs who are creating a product or a service to make people's life better. So what seems to be, you just clarified a lot for me in that explanation. What seems simple on the front end. I once heard a very difficult piano sonata done by Van Cliburn in a live performance. And I realized, even though it was very difficult, he was so skilled that he made it look easy. And so the gift of being very qualified at what you do is it doesn't look hard, so people can be fully engaged in the concept or the conversation. So what I went to was I lead board retreats for nonprofits, and there's a whole bunch of people being really serious about their work, but you also have people that are divided into committees, and they're charged with specific deliverables. What are we going to do? What are we going to accomplish this year? So the model I'm reframing in my mind is, how do we come together on what we're going to do as an organization, and then how do we do the breakouts, like you give us that time to do our work, and then how do we come back? How do we set the intention? Then how do we come back and report? And then there's another level. How does each of our jobs relate to one another? So I'm 74. I'm learning new stuff every day. So when you stop learning, you're 6 feet under the ground, is my theory. And my friend Bob Hopkins is on this call, and he says I'm going to have 20 more years to live, and I got to be productive. So that's a call to action. So speak to any of that. That we sit in an office and we surmise how we ought to do things, and there's an energy field working together. How does this work in real life? For instance, I mean, nonprofit or church or cause-based charity or a small entrepreneur, we're basically working alone. So how do we do this in real life and make it fun and productive?
It's a deep question. Blake and I are being polite of who will go first
I see.
because we're Canadian. Oh no, you go first.
Sorry.
It's interesting what you say around the collective energy, because it's palpable. People know, especially for those when you're with a team, there's a collective energy that happens there. And Hugh, as you were talking about your board retreats, I was thinking, oh man, that would be such a blast with you. So for those that don't know, when Hugh joined our workathon, first off, he had this amazing hat. And secondly, he was throwing amazing banter back and forth. And I went to breakout room with him. He's got his conductor. What do we call it? A conductor stick?
Baton.
A baton. I don't want to be, ignorant here on what we call it, but he busts that out, and he's got, anyways, the fun you were bringing to it. I was thinking, oh man, this guy, like, we can get along really well, because you like doing really great work. I can see you take your work very seriously, but you also know that the best work is when you're having fun. And so anyways, I like, clearly you're putting it to practice, and I think we have similar values on that front. But yeah, in terms of, I'm curious, Blake, what are your thoughts around what he was saying?
Well, when I think of these specific communities where people are doing their work, running their business, leading their communities, but it is kind of in a silo, I just think about, okay, what are some simple, basic, straightforward ways to connect to like the greater community? And I remember my dad told me this my dad forever ago read a book, and there was a quote in the book that said something like, you can't do it. Wait, I'm gonna mess this up. You have to do it alone, but you can do it together. I probably messed that up, but it's basically saying like no one can do your push-ups for you, but you can absolutely join a club and do your push-ups in a group. And that's what it comes down to. And so if there's someone right now who's tuned into this conversation and they feel like they're kind of isolated by themselves doing their own thing, I just think of what are some basic ways to create a ritual that lets everybody else kind of engage in the same activity at the same time. And so that's where a lot of this was birthed from, is the workathon was really, hey, Elon and I, a lot of the time, we would do work together. We used to be roommates. We had an apartment in the city of Toronto, and that was simply because we were best friends. We played music together, and sometimes we work at a coffee shop, and Elon had the brilliant idea of, let's move in together. So we did. But when we moved out, we were then on our own again. And so we used Zoom as a place to just like hop in and work a lot of the time. A few of our friends would just meet on Zoom, and Elon and I noticed that we were kind of the most passionate about this concept. Others were like kind of into it. Elon and I were obsessed with it. And so we built a ritual around starting our workday together and getting our most important work done. And so maybe there's a ritual that you need to do each day in your business. Maybe there's a ritual that you need to be doing in your community or your congregation. And maybe it's something very, very mundane and basic, such as, let's say, like, Hugh, what is a really mundane, basic activity someone in your community probably needs to do a few times a week in their business, in their work?
Something, somebody has to post social media. Somebody has to write letters to donors. Somebody has to follow up on the committees and talk about the action plans and find out where we are. Those are kind of the mundane things that people don't really have a lot of joy in doing most of the time.
Okay, so here we go. Letters to donors. Like, I wouldn't have thought of that. So first of all, thank you for that specific activity, because that's not one that's in my world. Letters to donors, I imagine, might not be the most like epic activity to be doing over and over and over again. Though if you don't write letters to donors, you're running out of money. Like, donors make the world go around that you're in. So the letters to donors, that's the key activity. If it were me, I'd be thinking to myself, okay, I know the letters are important. Maybe I'm not feeling as excited as I should be to work on them. So I would literally just form a like letters to donors ritual where maybe let's call it Tuesdays at 10, I write my donor letters. And then I literally just put a call out to see if one other person wants to do donor letters with me Tuesdays at 10. And I might text you first. I might phone you first. I might meet up with you on Zoom. Maybe then we take it up a notch and we go and make a community around it with like some real spirit, some emotional DNA to it. So, okay, my brain goes to letters to donors. I kind of feel alone. Maybe it's like donor loners meet up Tuesdays at 10. And then we get this like fun spirit thing. Maybe we make a t-shirt and we send it to each other and it's like, yo, donor loners. And we're going to write, I'm forgetting the words now because there's so many like puns coming out of me. Letters to donors will be written every week, Tuesday at 10, but then it just grows and grows and grows because that can equate to actual like dollars collected, that can equate to relationships formed. But the donor loaner community, it guarantees that the activity gets done. The emotion is captured because people are all in the same moment. And then the sky's the limit, and you can build in as many communities as you want. Even for me, I do not like running, but I like the concept of being healthy and the feeling of it. So Elon and I, we were running partners and we made a high five run years ago. What does that mean? We wore t-shirts that said free high fives. We ran all the way down the main street in Toronto and we high fived every stranger we passed. This was like 7 years ago. And then we invited friends. We invited more friends. The high five run, once upon a time, it grew from two dudes who wanted to run but hated running. And eventually it became a corporate team builder where we were hired by companies like Microsoft and LinkedIn to lead high five runs for their people. And it came from two dudes who wanted to run but hated running. So you can write your donor letters, not as a loner.
And it's not really considered a joyful activity. It's kind of something we have to do, but it's joyful getting the money. It's also, it ought to be joyful telling them about what we've done with their money. Here's the results. And it's really important to have that monthly touch point. Here's what's going on. Here's what's going on in this organization. Just wanted you to know. Then by the time you get to this time of year next year, at the end of the year, they're going to say, okay, I'm ready to donate again because I know that you're good stewards of the resources that I've provided for you. By the way, because I joined the American group, I guess it's American Leukemia Lymphoma Society. They have running, they coach you. I've run 3 half marathons because I had to show up, run with this group, and I had to make a commitment and raise some money for the disease. So I ended up running 3 half marathons and I had the energy. Okay, I got to be there because it's just the accountability of showing up.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that's really good. That's so helpful. Did you want to add any more to that, Elon?
I have a personal question to ask you, Hugh. This is of a selfish thing because I want to. My sport is rock climbing, and I sort of have it in me that I'd like to be able to rock climb when I'm 100 years old. Of course, I probably won't rock climb at the same skill level, but I am curious. When was the last time you ran a half marathon?
It was 2017.
Okay, this
Wow.
is beautiful. These are the stories that I need to hear to keep going because no one in my life, I don't know people who are let's call it over 50 even and being active. So this is an inspiration. This is good.
I could be your grandfather.
You could be.
You're his godfather.
Are you gonna adopt me now?
No, no.
Okay.
You can come. See, we have lots of mountains, lots of rocks. You can come. If you want to come to Virginia, you can stay with me. I got 6 bedrooms. There's place for you and your ladies to come visit me. So let's talk about deep work sprints, and what do you get out of it? So how do you help people address procrastination? And then how about intimidation? There's a whole lot of people smarter than me when actually everybody on your team ought to be smarter than you. If you're a smart leader, how do you attract more revenue? How do you make sure that your goals are actually happening? Is there some way to have peer-to-peer accountability that people don't feel like you got this big bat you're going to hit them with? So you address those kinds of things in a very subtle way in the workathon. And by the way, I'm going to ask you before we're done if you can drop in a link. If people could join a workathon, I'll certainly put the link in, and I'm going to put the Deep Work Sprints that's already on the web page. If you want to find out more about Blake and Elon, it's thenonprofitexchange.org, thenonprofitexchange.org. You'll be able to see the replay of this interview, and you'll be able to download it for your smartphone along with 7 years worth of interviews with inspiring people. Our goal is to have nonprofit leaders tell a story of how they've done things and have business leaders teach us some new techniques of how we can install some new processes into the organization we lead, because we are in fact leading a tax exempt business, and it's important to be productive. And maybe it's more important in the nonprofit world, especially today. There's so much work that needs to be done, and we're the people called to do it. So let's address some of these themes that you help people with. Any of those I mentioned, or are there some of those working on your business and not just in your business? That all of these apply to any kind of enterprise, as far as I'm concerned.
Well, our model in Deep Work Sprints is a pretty simple one. Though, as we say, there's a lot of thought that goes into making it simple. The first part is getting clear on the goal. And any leader knows that's incredibly important for the organization to be clear. What is our mission and what is the real goal we're going after in the next 30, 60, 90 days, maybe the next year, few years? Where are we going? And so when people join our daily membership, and I'll share these details because I think that a lot of them can be applied to organizations that could be pulled out. So the first part is getting real clear on the goal. Then once there's this goal, and figuring out, what are the obstacles, what are the things that are going to get out of the way, I usually go through that with people in a coaching session, kind of like how you probably do in your strategic planning. But then when people show up, they have daily work sprints every single day. And it's kind of like if you think about a group fitness class, or, you're trying to get healthy, well, you probably need to do your push-ups. If you're going to run a half marathon, you probably need to jog. No one else can do your jogging for you. You need to do it yourself. And so what we found is that's really simple is when you work with others, it just tends to be more fun. And I honestly suggest any of the leaders that are on here to join a workathon to just see how we're doing virtual co-working and experience it, because a lot of people are running remote teams right now. And even if you apply this now during the times where you're running remote teams, I'm sure there's ways you can apply it in person too, for sure. So when we actually run the sprints and these daily sprints, people come in with a very clear task of what they want to finish. And as we said, there's two questions at the start of the sprint. When everyone shows up into the Zoom room, after we connect for a couple of minutes, it's, what are you going to finish? And secondly, and this is more importantly, is how do you want to feel? And the feel part is, I think, the part that is often missed. A few years ago, I used to run a retreat every year for 40, 50 entrepreneurs. We'd go, leave the city, reflect on the past year, and vision out the new year. And there was this one exercise that I got showed to me that we ended up implementing. It was amazing. And it was called a goal walk. And it was sort of like a walking meditation. And it helped me vision out the progress of my goal and in what ways I would need to grow as a person and what resources I would need to be able to accomplish the goal. And you have these magic stones in front of you, these like sheets of paper that you step on. And it's these like, the things that you need to show up to get to your end goal, could come to you in this meditation. And what was interesting is when I got to the end, and being in a meditation type moment, it's being very centered on how you're feeling and how you're thinking. I noticed something very interesting, which is that the feeling at the end of the goal, like I didn't really care as much about okay, now I've accomplished this thing, as much as, wow, we're all chasing the feeling of success. And so our staff, they all want to feel successful. Leaders, you always want to feel successful. But if it's this thing you're chasing, only once you accomplish the end goal, then you've missed the whole process and you've missed the joy of creation. So in that, I realized that it's not about the end goal. It's about showing up with that energy, throughout the whole process. So, and that's why we ask people to set an intention for how they want to feel, which sounds very simple. But there's a real magic to it, because if, you need to make decisions, maybe your energy is to feel decisive. But if you're like crafting a post online, maybe you want to feel creative. If you're writing donor letters, maybe you want to feel loving and connected. And when we get in tune to our intention, like think about it, we're writing donor letters. For it to feel like a chore, we're being disconnected from the beauty of this letter that we're writing. To thank these wonderful people who are helping support this amazing mission that you have. And so I think that intention piece, which sounds so simple, can bring people to the intention of what they're trying to produce. And then that makes all the difference, because when you reflect back at the end of the 100 minutes of the sprint, or the, however long the time is that you're working on it, that's one of the measures that is overlooked. So yeah, so it's really the process of setting a very clear, here's what I want to produce, because especially in intellectualized work, you could think about things all you want, but you want to show an outcome. And the second thing is setting that intention and really being true to it.
We have a hand up. May I call on them for a question?
Go for it.
Yes.
Mr. Bob Hopkins, who's the author of this wonderful book, Philanthropy Misunderstood. It's a great book. You can find it at the website with that name, philanthropymisunderstood.org. Bob,
Awesome.
you had your hand up.
I do, and I have a voice. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Hey, Bob.
Okay, great. Well, I saw you all, Hugh. I saw you in a hat, and I've never seen you in a hat before. And then I saw Elon in a hat, and I thought, oh God, this is hat day, so I better get a hat. And so I have a hat here, and unfortunately you can't see me. And then I saw Blake, and he doesn't have a hat. Blake, shame on you. This is
Shame on you, Blake. Bob, thank you for calling him out on that.
Oh, he's gone.
No, he's coming.
He's coming back.
Came to mention the hat. Now he's back.
Hey, Bob.
Okay. Yeah.
Bob, turn on your camera.
Well, okay, I'll do it.
There's his
Yes.
hat.
Hey, give me 10 seconds. I'm getting a hat.
You shamed him into getting a hat.
I am so happy that you did that, Bob.
Yeah.
Wow.
Exactly.
That hat's got a story to tell.
Well, this hat came from Haiti, and it's made out of burlap and sugar cane. And you know what? I've never worn it before, but it's been hanging on my wall, and it was the closest hat I had. So anyway, that's what I got here. And so thank you for letting me show it off today. I took pictures of all of us in our hats so that I could send everybody the pictures of their hats. But Blake, don't have a picture of Blake yet. He's got two hats. We'll put one on, Blake, either one
Which
you
one?
want.
Winter or summer?
This is still summer over here. We're 77 degrees in Dallas. So
Oh,
anyway,
grateful. I love it.
that's where I am. Perfect. Okay, so I love this. I love this what you're doing here. And I teach at home. I teach college, and I'm at home. I don't have any students. Haven't seen any of my students. I don't even know my students, but I make them come on Zoom so that I can at least see them. I teach speech. How can you teach speech if you don't see your students, right? So
Right.
anyway, the college doesn't care whether I see them or not. They just want me to make sure that I go through the materials regardless of whether or not they've learned how to give a speech. I think that's what my opinion is. Don't tell anybody that. But anyway, I had started a magazine, and I started the magazine in this office. One person, that was me. And then I'm at home, by the way. And then I had a second person come in, and then I had a third person come in, and we ran out of space. So finally, the third person, who didn't have a chair, didn't have a table, went into my bedroom and got the ironing board and brought the ironing board in and set it up. And she could make it at any size and height she wanted. And all she had to do was then she brought a chair from home. And so she was able to work in here. And then finally I brought a fourth person, the fifth person come in, and she said, I'm not doing this. I'm going out and renting an office, and you guys can come with me if you want to, but you don't have to. Well, we all ended up going with her to her massive office where we all had offices, et cetera, et cetera. And it was a magazine, and the magazine fell apart because we weren't together. And because we weren't doing, and we weren't listening to each other talk, and we weren't listening to each other sell, and we weren't listening to each other accomplish, kind of a thing. Well, that's not really the reason that the magazine fell apart, but it was a whole different deal. So you're giving me some really interesting things here, but how do you want to finish? I got that one, but how do you want to feel? Well, of course, everybody wants to feel good. So how many feelings are there at the end of the day? I mean, I see satisfied, successful, excited. Do you want to feel? Nobody wants to feel bad. Nobody wants to feel denied. So what do you mean here? Feel.
This is beautiful. What a question. And thanks for being here, Bob. I mean, I just want to go like on a road trip as a quattro. This is amazing. I think sometimes we actually cheat the system with the question of how do you want to feel? Because just as an example, this morning, our member community in Deep Work Sprints, we wrote our intentions as to how we want to feel. And someone wrote the word capable. Someone wrote the word inspired. And I don't know if capable is a feeling. I think inspired is a feeling, but I think we might cheat it because we may go a little out of bounds from feelings, because I'm seeing people write intentions and share intentions that are more just around like reminding themselves that they've got the capacity to be successful, much like our new friend who just joined. Your intention based on your viewpoint is to have like the coolest hat on the internet right now. This is amazing. Oh my gosh, what hat do we got here?
This is Mr. Rash from Bedford. Bob is in Dallas, and J.E. Rash is in Bedford, Virginia, just down the road from us. And I shamed him into bringing a hat. He wanted to make a comment, so I said, "Bring a hat. I'll put you on the screen." So, Bob, I wanted to make sure you were through with your comments before I went to Ahmed.
Yeah, I'm finished basically. But I didn't get the answer that I was waiting for is, how do you feel?
How do you
So,
feel?
So
so
right in the middle of it.
Right, I was in the middle of it before the epic hat moment. I was just sharing that I don't know if we legitimately have only feelings. It's almost more of a pep talk to the self. It's like a speech to each worker from them to them, where they just want to go into the zone of work, reminding themselves that like they're building something awesome, instead of, oh, I hope I'm productive, or, well, I hope I like, stay focused. It's literally like a pep talk. So sometimes we don't use words that are actual feelings. We use words that are kind of the thing we want to see written on our bathroom mirror, but we just put it in the Zoom chat.
I think what's most interesting in our daily membership, when we're doing it, there's the moment we get people to write it in the chat box, right? And then we do just a few breaths to center on that intention. But then, and by the way, we've got like some fun background music to set the tone for the whole thing. But we have everyone go around and picture one after another. They declare their intention with their voice, and you can hear the intention and the intensity behind it. So it gives them a moment to step up to the intentionality of what they want to feel. So of course, yeah, no one puts a negative intention, and no one goes to work, purposely trying to have bad feelings. But yeah, it's giving them an intentional moment to be reminded of how they actually do want to feel towards it. So like, for example, with those donor letters, if you were saying loving, well, but we're going to be able to hear it when you voice it. It gives you a chance to even start it and to start embodying that feeling that you want. And sometimes it's decisive, sometimes it's bold, sometimes we've had dozens of different feeling words come up. And it would be interesting to look back through the data set of all the different emotions people have brought up, and with what frequency. But that's a project for maybe someone in your university to come help us with.
What I see y'all demonstrating is leaderships is not about telling people; it's about enabling and empowering and influencing people. And you influence results. You don't micromanage anybody. You don't really tell us what to do. You push the energy out so they can push it back. It's really quite remarkable. We got about 7 minutes left. I want Mr. Rash. You have a comment or a question you want to lay on the table for these fine gentlemen? Can you hear me?
He's
You're
talking,
you're
but he's muted. He's got his
muted.
microphone off.
You're muted.
I
There you
can
go.
I can take up 10 of those 7 minutes if you want, easily. As you well know.
How about 2 minutes?
Wow, you can
Oh,
2 minutes. No, that's an impossibility for me. No, I want to thank you, gentlemen, for your presentation today, and just tell you how important that is, that it resonates with me, because for 41 years at our organization, Legacy International, we've based everything on understanding of community. In fact, we are one of the oldest spiritual communities in the United States that I started over 50 years ago.
Wow.
As a Sufi-based spiritual community. And what we did was we're able to transfer that into, as you knows very well, a 501c3 secular nonprofit called Legacy International. And we work all over the world. This is from Kyrgyzstan, by the way, this hat, and it's very warm in Kyrgyzstan and too warm in Bedford right now. I think that you've touched on really very, very important, extremely important core values, especially for the world that we live in today. And this is a blessing in a way also of COVID-19, which forces people to face their realities. In our organization, we've been using this kind of format for probably 10 years internationally, along with in-person exchanges all over the world, working a lot with the State Department philanthropies, and I think that there are certain concepts that you've captured from your own experience that are really core. One is that we share universal values, and when we begin our work, I talk about universal values, which help us to realize how we can become humane human beings, and that's a foundation of the community building that we do online or in person. Right now, we've done probably 40 online community processes just since COVID. And what I find is what you've also talked about, because you used the word community at the beginning, is that this is the real foundational principle of community. So I really commend you for doing that. And looking at what we have in common: compassion, a sense of justice, love, a sense of mercy, which are normally people thought of soft or spiritual terminology, which it is spiritual terminology, of course, but it's also very practical. It gives creativity to people. There's a saying in the Middle East: actions follow intentions. It comes from the Prophet Muhammad, actually, and so that's 1,430 years ago that discovery was made or affirmed. And working with universal values, it seems to me to be a real basic principle of helping people create their intentions and their actions. So what I guess if there's a question behind this, and I'll frame it in another form, another saying that I tend to use in my lectures and talks, which is, instead of talking about unity and diversity, we talk about diversity and unity. I got it. And I guess the question is, what's your next step? What are you contemplating? What's your vision for your next step in this process?
Thank you for that. Gentlemen, we got about 3 minutes. We need to wrap here. So I'll answer this complex question quickly.
I'll give a quick response. I'd say a next step in my mind is, Elon and I thought what we were doing was creating a virtual co-working experience. Whereas I'm realizing we're just becoming really excited to just create a virtual culture where people choose to work. And then the culture inherently, it just provides a space of belonging where people get to do their work. So we thought this was a productivity thing, whereas it's becoming a belonging thing, and people just get to get work done in the process. So I think it's just on the path towards more people feeling like they belong, and they get work done in the process. Whereas it stemmed from, let's be productive. And that's ancient history to us now. Elon, what do you think?
Yeah, it's amazing how what we've started and where it's evolving to right now. What it's evolving into is really becoming the most successful accelerator, a virtual co-working accelerator for entrepreneurs to accomplish goals faster. And as we build into the thousands of entrepreneurs in this community, we're trying to actively figure out, how do we curate that? How do we create this environment that helps them all succeed in a way that still makes it feel small and communal and connected. And so really it's about maintaining the level of smallness in the bigness of everyone and what they're accomplishing. So I would say, yeah, I'll end it there because I know our show is about to end.
Yeah, thank you for that. Those, you don't need a lot of words to be profound. That's really so. Center Vision is a community, and we invite you. Whether you're a business leader, you should be serving on a nonprofit board. Invite the nonprofit leader and join our community. It's nonprofitcommunity.org, nonprofitcommunity.org. And if you join the community, you get this latest book. It's on Amazon, but you can have it 31 days to becoming a better leader. It's a podcast, and this is the companion workbook that sells for $30 on Amazon, and you get that for joining. So join our community, nonprofitcommunity.org, and it shows you what it's all about. And you can also go to Deep Work Sprints, deepworksprints.com. It's on the website at the nonprofitexchange.org. And there's a place up there you can apply for Deep Work Sprints. There's also learn hacks to optimize your focus, output, and sales process immediately. And we are selling in the nonprofit. We're selling the value of what we're doing to our donors and our supporters and our volunteers. So these guys have wisdom past their years. So each of you, just spend 30 seconds. What's a challenge that you'd like to leave people with today?
Take something so basic in your everyday activities and invite others to join you doing the exact same basic activity. There's some magic in that, especially when applied to business.
The thing I'll leave this with is I do extend an invite for you to join our virtual workathon like you did. Experience this firsthand, because we're talking very theoretical, but once you experience it, you'll find some really interesting way to apply this with your teams and how to bring more life to some of the more mundane things that you guys are trying to accomplish.
Thank you for that invite. And I will have, if you'll send me that link, I'll put it on the interview page, and it will be in the content of the podcast as well. So when you find that you want to review this, download it on your smartphone, anywhere you get podcasts, but you go to thenonprofitexchange.org and you'll find this interview, and you'll be able to read the transcript very soon, watch the replay, and then have it on your phone, and then get connected with Deep Work, the Workathon and Deep Work Sprints. You see the value that these fine gentlemen bring to the world. Thank you for sharing your time today. And I can't wait for the next Workathon. I'm geared up already, and it's a week and a day away.
See you there.
Yeah.
So thank you for being here. And I'm going to say, this is a great interview. So thank you so much, gentlemen.
Thank you.